Good morning. It's Monday morning, and I'm back again with another live stream, building another map, building another map card. So, I've just been, I've just been chasing dogs around the yard, trying to get them to calm down and stop barking at the garbage trucks. So I think I've wrangled the mutts. So let's actually start with something. Okay, so new. Let's set up my template. So if you haven't used GIMP before, and I say this pretty much every time, when you're using GIMP, you can create an image from scratch using this little panel, or you can set one up, and then you can set it up as a template. And I've got a 10 by 10 adventure map grid set up already, so all I need to do is just select it. Whoop. All this is preset. Click OK, and there's my map canvas. One annoying thing that it does is it does create it with whatever color was your last background color, and I switch my background colors around a lot. Then what you want to do is you want to go View, Show Grid. So there's my 180 pixel grid, and then you'll want to go, where is it? View, Snap to Grid. So that way, anything that I place onto the map will get snapped to my grid. Then create a bunch of folders. This is where all of our bits will go. So we've got a ground. Oop, no spelling mistakes. So we've got our ground folder. Put that up there. Then we've got our floor folder. And the folders are pretty self-explanatory. So, the ground is where we put all of our, dirt and river and water and stuff like that. The floor is where we put all of the floor tiles. Then we have the walls. Helps if I actually type correctly. There we go. And then, go there. And then features. Oops. Okay, so, and then features go up the top. There we go. So that's how I organize my adventure maps for building, and I use map tiles. So here's a folder of all of my map tiles, and at the moment I'm making some underground catacombs levels, so I'm using my catacombs map tiles pack, using the stone wall overlays, I believe. Yep, these ones. So I'm going to be using these to build my map. So let's view in a little bit bigger. So fill window. Oops, that's a bit too big. We want to see a bit more than that. Fit image in window. That's what we want. Okay, cool. So go to my walls folder because I'm putting in the walls first. I like to. Depends what I'm building. Sometimes I like to start by putting in the floor. Sometimes but most of the time I like to start by putting in the walls, and then I put the floor in after that. Now, also with these dungeon tiles, because it's designed. Hang on, where's my pencil? Come on, draw. It helps if I'm, There we go. Better make that a bit smaller. There we go. Okay, so let's just get rid of that. So with the, pardon me, the whole idea of the dungeon map tiles is that you can put one tile down, another tile, and another one up here, and the dungeon is going to map, like this. It's drawing a bit weird because it's trying to snap to the grid. So what I have to do is I have to have the same doorway here and here, here and here, here and here. So what I've been doing on these tiles. Let me just get rid of this. Deal with that. So on these dungeon ones, I've actually been having this and this and this and this and this. So a big double door on each tile, so that when a tile gets put beside this one on this side, you know, that's where you'll go. But what I'm also doing, because I want to have, you know, dungeon edges, I'll have a situation where I don't want to have, if I just make this bigger, you know, I don't want to have a door over here. I just want it here, here, and here. Or I might want to have, you know, no doorway here. So it's this one and this one. So I do have to design some tiles where I don't have the edges, the doorways on all the edges, which is what I'm doing at the moment. I'm making a couple of tiles where there's no doorways all the way around. So that's what I'm doing right now. But I still need to put in, if I just drag this in, I still need to put in, so there's going to be a doorway here. I still need to put those doorways in. So there's going to be a doorway here, and let's just have one up here. So we'll do, so this entire edge will be closed off. So the only entrances we have to worry about is this one and this one, with you know, our dungeon building. So having those there, I now know there's a doorway coming in, or there's a corridor coming there and a corridor coming in there. And what I might do is I might put a curve here. So the corridor curves around. That might look pretty cool. But I just remembered in this tile set I don't have the curve bits. So unfortunate, we won't have, it'll have to be a square. It'll have to do that. When this comes around, there we go. It'll have to be, you know, it'll have to be a corridor like this, which is good. Which means we can have a big room here and then little rooms out through here. So let's just quickly pop that in. So we'll make this room here. And as you can see, with the grid enabled, these snap pretty quickly. You know, you just have to drag it into position. Boink, there it is, in position. So let's just put these in. So that's the corners of that room. Then we want to have an entrance, which means we're going to need some of these. Let's make the entrance over here. So this will be a doorway. There we go, like that. And then we just fill in the extra walls. And one thing I'll do today as well is I'll actually show the next stage. Like, this is what I'm doing at the moment is I'm just building the structure of the dungeon. I'm not actually putting any of the internal pieces in place. So, for example, furniture and stuff like that. What I will do is I'll show you how I put the furniture in, because I've got an interesting little thing which you get access to. If you're on my Patreon, you get access to this. You can download stuff and you can actually request that I build bits, which will become part of the collection, which I will show you in just a jiffy. But I'll just quickly put this room together. Okay, so there's our room. There's a room. All in the wrong folder. So I've been putting these in the floor folder. So I'll just grab all these and put these into the walls folder, because these are our walls. Okay, so they're now in the right folder, and I'll actually just put the rest of this wall in. Where are we? Okay, so we need a wall there, and then a wall coming along here. So how's your Monday looking? Hello, Lone Scout. How are you doing? I just saw your morning message. My morning is freezing cold. My fingers are going to fall off. And so that's that. Let's put the floor in because it'll look weird if I don't have a floor and I do this next piece. So we're using the catacombs. This floor? Okay, so let's just come along, start here. Just chilling. Appropriate words for the morning. It is freezing cold. I don't know what part of the world you're in, but here in Australia, we're going through winter. And it is cold. So cold. Okay, so I'll just put this floor in, because if I don't put the floor in, what I'm going to do next, because I have art pieces which I call ready-made rooms, and as per the name, these are art pieces that you can put down to effectively create the contents of a room in, just by plonking down one asset. But if I don't have a floor in, it'll look weird. And it should have, my pieces should have all of the shadows and everything pre-rendered. They don't have walls. It's like imagine if you took the contents of a room, took a photo, but then took away the floor, the walls, just left the contents of the room, and you had the shadows, but the shadows are sort of in limbo. Sort of, the shadows are there, but they're not really there. So let's zoom in. So we go to zoom, 1 to 1, and then I scroll up. Okay. So let me go and find what I was talking about. It's in ready-made rooms. Okay, so this is another little project I work on. Oh, I've got it in the wrong pieces. Okay, but this gives you an idea. I'll just drag this out. This is a 7 square by 7 square pre-made room. So I'm just going to go view, fit in window. Okay, so it's a pretty big area. So you can see it's a pre-made, as the name says, pre-made room. But I've been working on other pieces. I can't remember where I put them. I'll have to go and find them. But because these are the same project, but I actually put in the walls, which I don't do anymore, and the floor, because the whole idea is that. So here's another piece. So there's a bedroom. So you could just come along and go, whoop, I'm just going to add that bedroom there. The whole idea of this is that I've got, so for example, if you look at this bedroom, so imagine, take away the walls, take away the floor, and you've just got the bed, the chest, the table with all the bits on the table, including the light, and the shadows. So imagine if we grab that, we could just then put it there, and it will fill that space, and it's already got the shadows and everything like that. So that's what I'm doing with ready-made rooms. Same with this one. So for example, you could just have, say, this table, and all the shadows and everything that go with it, and just plonk it down in here. So that's one thing I'm working on, and that's actually how I'm going to do. I'll just get rid of these pieces for now, and that's how I'm going to do the interiors. So that's something that I'm working on. Yes, I do two things. I do buy I just saw your question. I do buy ready-made 3D models. So someone else has made the 3D model, and then I've bought the rights to use that 3D model, and then I render it in a setting, and then I put it into the map. So for example, let's have a look at this one. So here's a dinner table. I just put over here. So if you look at this one, you know, so someone else has made the 3D model of the dinner table, because I buy ready-made 3D models, because I'm still teaching myself how to make 3D models. I originally learned how to do it in a program called 3D Studio Max, but unfortunately 3D Studio Max costs several hundreds of dollars to use per month, because they have a subscription. Everything's by subscription now, and I can't afford several hundreds of dollars per month. Like Adobe costs me about $100 a month for all the Adobe programs. Let me just get back into the map tiles and then back into the catacombs, and I'll continue making the adventure map as I go. So yeah, I learned how to do it originally. Hang on, I want to go back to Stonewall overlays. Yes, there we go. Okay, so I originally learned how to make 3D models in 3D Studio Max, and I taught myself how to use another program called ZBrush. Now, ZBrush and 3D Studio Max are awesome programs, but they have a wee bit of a price tag, which, if you're a struggling artist like myself, and you're effectively relying on the donations of others buying your stuff, it's expensive to be paying, you know, a few $100s a month for a subscription to a 3D program, which you can't really quantify that you're making back the money that you're spending on that program, if you sort of get what I mean. So it's a little bit hard to sort of like say, hey, yeah, I'm using this program and it's costing me hundreds of dollars. I don't know if I'm making back my time. So yeah, I've decided to, and it's been a fair while since I used 3D Studio Max. So since it's been so long, and my memory of 3D Studio Max is pretty vacant now, I've thought I'll start learning another program called Blender, which is a free program, and it seems to be getting, like, when I first heard of Blender years ago, and it was a god-awful program when I first discovered it. The interface, how to explain it? The interface was like something written by a computer programmer, which is not to say computer programmers can't make nice interfaces, user interfaces, but this one was terrible. It was, you could just see that it was designed by people that, you know, they think in code, numbers and ones and zeros and stuff, and it was like, no, you know, it was just not good. But over the years, Blender has, its user interface has been redesigned, and it is now very good. It's very good for a stupid plebeian like myself. I can pick it up and I think I can learn it. And I've started making things in Blender, and it's going quite well so far. Oops, I think I've gone too far up. I want to go in here. So I'm actually enjoying making things in Blender, and I've got a friend of mine who does like movie special effects, and I sort of sort of poke his brain to find out how to do things when I can't figure how to do it. So would you ask you? I use Blender for my 3D hobbles, 3D models. Remember if you have a chat. Get a subscription to public. No, it doesn't. It doesn't use a subscription, or at least, like Blender is a free program. It doesn't have a subscription model. It has a donation model, as far as I know. Not that I've read. It doesn't have, like, if you want to use it commercially, you don't have to pay anything. You just use it. And whatever you make with it, you own, as far as I know, like, don't take my word for it, I'm not a lawyer. You own the rights to whatever you make. So it's sort of, from what I've heard, Blender is becoming an industry standard in the movie industry, and it's sort of becoming an industry standard in the building industry, because I have some friends who are architects, and they tell me that Blender is used to 3D visualize buildings before they're made, and they, architects will import their CAD files into Blender, so that they can then render a picture to see what the building's going to look like in place before they go and build their building. Which, sounds like a good idea. You wouldn't want to build $1 million building and then discover, oh, it doesn't fit where we're building it, or it doesn't look good, which would be really bad. But yeah, Blender is Blender's a really cool program. I do recommend it. It is one of the things my friend did tell me, though, is, which I'm very hesitant about. I don't like using lots of plugins, and my friend was telling me, get used to using lots of plugins. There's heaps of plugins which will do little bits and pieces that Blender itself either doesn't do or doesn't do well. Like, for example, one plugin I was told about is a plugin called Box Cutter, which I don't have this plugin, so I can't say whether it's a good plugin or a bad plugin, but apparently it's really good for Boolean operations and stuff. Just wing it. I agree. I totally agree. That's pretty much what I do. Is I just poke buttons and hope that it does what I think it does. Luckily for me, I don't have the same constraints that my friend has when he uses Blender, because he has to worry about model typology, how models, and the reason why you worry about model typology, and the typology is like the how you design the mesh of your object. He has to worry about things like that because he needs to be able to deform objects and have them look good, because he's doing stuff for, TV commercials or movies and films and stuff. So, for example, if you made a model of the hand, you have to design the typology of, your fingers so that they can move and bend, and the typology of the mesh will deform and it looks correct. Whereas with me, I don't have to worry about that. I don't have to be worried about moving and bending my models, because I'm only making still images. At the moment, I really have minimal plans to do animation for my role-playing bits and pieces. So I don't really have to worry about typology, where he has to worry about typology. So I'm just worried about how it looks whatever I'm making, you know, does it look good in a final render? Looks cool. That's all I care about. I don't care about if the typology looks like a mess, whereas he has to sort of keep track of that. So I think I've sort of got a little bit of an easier road than what he has. But you know, I'm still learning. One of the main thing I think I've got to learn next is texturing, because I want to be able to make objects and then texture them. So texturing and sculpting are the next things I really need to get in and learn. I can make shapes and bits and pieces. That's pretty easy to do. And in fact, I'm going to have a lot of modeling to do when I do the next part of the cube adventure, because the font of understanding and the shrine, I want to 3D model all that, because I want to take pictures all over the place, because I want to give people the ability to effectively climb. There's a wall out the front of the shrine, and I want adventurers the ability to climb up the wall and in through some windows as a main way of getting inside this shrine. And so I want to be able to make it in 3D, render pictures of the wall showing the window, and the windows are going to be like, I want to have these LED light windows. So it's going to be interesting to see how to do that. Like sculpt it and then paint it, so it looks, you know, looks good. And let me just get this down, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to make this corridor come around here, and then have the window, the wall, the rooms on the outside. That's what I'm thinking of doing. But one thing I should talk about as well, with getting back to the Cube Adventure World, I've finished. I finished the episode 2, so that's been completed, and I'm now ready to. So I've actually released the Fantasy Grounds module. I put that into the Studio Dungeon for download, so people who are on Patreon can download stuff, and they can download it and, you know, play around with it, see how it looks. We'll just put that there. But it also means that I've now got to make the next chapter. Oops. Well, sorry. I've got to make the Roll20 module and the Foundry module, which hopefully, because all the content's written and all the artwork's done, I just have to cut and paste a lot into those programs. So hopefully those modules won't take too long to get ready and publish. I'm not going to be working on them today, because I think I need to make some more YouTube material. I think I've been a bit slack in that regard. So that'll probably be what I'll work on today, is maybe make another short or something. Or what I might do is make a little video about the module, like do like a little preview video. That could be something I make as well. But let's just get this room in. Okay. But then the cool bit is I get to go on to the next adventure module, which is the font of understanding, which is how it's the reason why the mutant rats have started to mutate. Well, it's not the only reason. There's a couple of reasons. You do actually get to discover those reasons as well, because assuming you know, the characters follow the rats into the forest as they're requested to do, because at the end of the current adventure, down the wrong tile. At the end of the current adventure, the Rat King sort of says, hey, look, if you help me out, I'll help you out. I'll stop my crazy sons from raiding caravans on the Trader's Way if you help me out. So, assumingly the characters will go, sure, we'll help you. We'll take your treasure as well, because he sort of, offers a reward. But then the rats will take the characters into the forest. And they'll take them to a place where they can rest and recuperate first. And while the characters are there, they will discover that where the rats are living, there are devices. And these strange magical devices are what is effectively causing the rats to grow big and mutate and stuff like that. And you also discover that these devices are having the same effect upon the local wildlife. So there will be, I'm planning to have an encounter with a giant praying mantis, a mutated giant praying mantis that will try and eat one of the characters, because that's what giant praying mantises do. They try to eat you. And I've accidentally loaded up Photoshop. No, why are you loading up? Don't do that. Go away. Go away. A preview of the module would be interesting. I totally agree. Go away, Photoshop. Go away. I'm not using you now. I'm using GIMP. Yeah, do maybe a live stream or a video or something with the contents. I was thinking of doing like a walkthrough, like an adventure walkthrough for game masters to sort of like say, hey, these are hints and tips on how to run this adventure. Do this here, do that there, stuff like that, which I thought would be kind of cool. But it's also to sort of show that, these are the bits and pieces that you get when you purchase the adventure. A lot of written story. I wrote so much material for this adventure. I think that's why this one took so long to build. Is I wrote a lot of material. Okay, so having a room just here. I won't have it connect to this one, so I think we can just close this off. But yeah, so the next bit's going to be sort of, so there'll be an encounter at the camping ground where the rats take the character with a large praying mantis, but they'll also discover like there's all these other giant insects, like giant caterpillars, because where the rats have sort of taken up residence is the ruins of an ancient wizard community. But what they used to do is they used to grow silkworms, and they used magical devices to enchant the fruit that or the trees and the leaves that they feed to the silkworms to make the silkworms grow larger, and to make the silk better or enchantable. So the silk is very the silk that the silkworms weave is very highly usable for magic casters, for creating magic items. So, because what I'm hoping to do story-wise is I'll make it that the rats, the anthropomorphic rats, sort of become like they start a trade in Silk with the local gnome kingdom. So they sort of become like established figures in the world. Oh, there we go. And because the adventurers help them out, they'll become a source of future help. And if the characters get in a bit of trouble, they go, okay, we know Rat King, and he owes us a favor, so we can go into the forest and see the Rat King, and he can help us out. Stuff like that. So they'll become sort of like pivotal characters later on, which I like the juxtaposition that they start out as a foil, and because they're monster rats, maybe the characters sort of think, they're monster rats. They're villains. They're might eaters. So yeah, I like that turn of events. And pardon me, I need a drink. Where's my drink? So yeah, I like that turn of events, that the villain becomes not necessarily a hero, but they're not necessarily bad either. Okay, so what are we going to do here? Let's put, because I've been putting pit traps all over the place in this dungeon, let's put a great big one here, so that it's a 10-foot wide one. It's be nice and difficult to get past. Where's my 2x2 floors? Here we go. And I am in my floor area, so that's all good. So yeah, I like the idea that the rats they're not necessarily bad, but they're bad because they've had trouble. Each successive generation of the rats has been getting stupid. So that's been, that's why the Rat King is after the players, or the adventurers, to come and help them, is because he needs, you find out from the story, that he needs access to the font of understanding, because that's the magic elixir that granted these animals understanding in the first place. Because this wizard from long ago, from the previous communities that lived on the cube, he figured out how to distill knowledge and put it in a potion. And the wizards at this old community, they had a lot of wizards that had a lot of animal familiars. Now, an animal familiar is really handy and really useful, but they're still an animal. If you have a pet parrot, it's still a pet parrot. It's it can't. Its understanding is limited to that of a parrot. So it can't. You can't really hold a conversation with your parrot, or have conduct really extensive projects. Oh, Photoshop, stop. I don't mean to double click on things, but I keep double clicking apparently. Okay, let's just get rid of Photoshop. Stop. Go away. Go away. There we go. Okay. Yeah, I think I keep double clicking for some reason with my pen. That's why Photoshop keeps popping up. Naughty Photoshop. So it's the question, really, it's the gnomes who will eat the adventurers. Kind of. The gnomes are... The gnomes are... they've got their own problems as well. I don't really want to give away too many spoilers, but the gnomes are sort of... They're a foil that you have to work against the gnomes, and I'm talking about the Imperial gnomes here. But at the same time, as much as they are, and they fall into the category of frenemy. They're a friendly enemy. They can be very helpful, but they're not on your side. They're on their side. But also, as you sort of work out later on through the adventure, and I sort of hint a lot towards this in the plot, that the gnomes of the cube, there's history there that the gnomes themselves don't. Collectively, the gnomes themselves don't know this, but there are some gnomes that know the secret, but they're keeping it hidden, for various reasons that you'd find out later on. But I don't want to give the game away, because I think it'll be a really cool reveal when it happens. So at the moment they're sort of like they're frenemies, but also they're kind of. I hope this doesn't give away too much. They're victims. They're victims of the world of the cube, like pretty much everybody else. But they're victims in like a really nasty way. But again, I don't really want to give that plot hook away, because I think it'll be a really cool reveal. And that people who've sort of followed the plot will sort of like go, man, that's just nasty. I can now understand why they are the way that they are. Yeah, so I'm going to allude to it a lot, but I'm not going to give that plot hook away just yet. Sorry to be pedantic, but yeah, I think that one will be really cool. But the gnomes, yeah, the interaction between the characters and the gnomes, the Imperial gnomes, will not be on like an individual level. They're just like everybody else. They're just like you and me. They're just like every other character, just getting on with their lives and doing their thing. But as a society as a whole, they really look down. Well, they don't really look down. They look down upon off-worlders, because they don't consider, because to their religion, Mechanos, the god of the gnomes, the god of puzzles and innovation, he made the world of the cube for the gnomes. He didn't make it for anybody else. This is the world that he created for the gnomes. So it's not for this puzzle world. It's not for off-worlders. It's for the gnomes. So Mechanos didn't create this place for you. He created it for us. That's the sort of mentality that they really have. So it's sort of it's a kind of xenophobic mentality, because off-worlders, they don't matter. They're not part of Mechanos' plan. Mechanos, he has a plan. Like all gods, they have plans. So yeah, there'll be times where, especially if the characters discover any interesting artifacts out in the wild, the gnomes will be very interested about it, because they collect everything from antiquity, or what they consider as their antiquity. But they sort of confiscate it, because they don't think you should have it. Like if you discover magical device, and you go wandering through a gnome city, and the gnome guard just sort of says, "Hey, where did you get that thing from? We don't know what that is. Did you? Okay, we're confiscating that. That's imperial technology, which we're taking back. That's sort of going to be what will happen." So yeah, the Imperial Gnomes are going to be a major foil to a lot of stuff that the characters do, especially if they stick to the great quest of trying to find a way home. Because any of the machines in any of the dungeons that they discover, the Imperial Gnomes are going to want to know about it, and they're going to want to send their artificers to figure, in their eyes, protect those machines and look after those machines, because those machines were created by Mechanos for the gnomes, but not for some filthy off-worlder who has no real connection to those devices. No. That's no good. We can't let the off-worlders use these arcane devices that were left for us. But that's further down the track. The adventurers, well, assuming they follow the adventure path, which I'm laying out, the adventurers will, they arrive on the world of the cube at the teleportation portal, which hopefully your average player will work out that if the teleportation hub got the player characters onto the world of the cube, but they have no means of manipulating or controlling the teleportation hub, there's obviously going to be somewhere else that does control the teleportation hub, which means if they can find that place, then they hopefully can get the teleportation hub to take them home. Let's put that over there and grab a pit trap and put it here. Because that's basically what drives the Great Quest, is everybody who's been kidnapped and left marooned on the world of the cube, everybody who's on the Great Quest is basically running on the assumption that since a machine teleported them from their world onto the world of the cube, there must be another machine somewhere that does the opposite. Does it? That will get them back home. And that's the basis of the Great Quest. And then it's just a case of rummaging through all of these different dungeons to find that machine, and in the process discovering the story of what happened on the world of the cube. What were all of these wizards up to with all of these weird experiments? Like, the basic idea is that they were exploring, or like basically doing what scientists in our own world do, which is they do science to discover how stuff works. It'd be like Einstein and Stephen Hawking conducting experiments to discover how gravity works and string theory and all that sort of jazz, except imagine gravity and string theory, but magic. There's magic as well. And speaking of magic, I've just completed what a segue. I've just completed this adventure map card, so I'm going to give it a save. So let's so the whole idea is that people can come through here and come through here. They've got to get past the pit traps, but I'll put stuff in these big rooms. I've missed nothing. All of everything's got edges, cornerstones. Yep. Looks good. Okay, so let me just save off this one, and then I'll make another map card, and I'll continue my story. So let me just go to projects. Where am I putting this? Dropbox. Hello, Dropbox. Projects. Putting it into my pack builds, map tiles, endless dungeon crawl. Now this is the underground part. Hang on. Underground part, not the ground part. Underground, and this is the catacombs, but it's an edge, western edge. here we go. So this is the never eat soggy meaty. So this is western south edge. West and south. And so you go save. If you like these adventure maps, and you are on my Patreon, go export as. You can, if I just find the right thing, you can later on this afternoon. I usually upload a copy of these maps to the Studio Dungeon export. In the Studio Dungeon, there is a page called the Art Assets Library, and in there you can actually get the raw files to download. So you'll actually get, all this information. So if you want to use this straight away, you can actually download this map. And if you sort of like go, oh, I like it, but I want to close this off and stuff. If you've got the map tiles, you can actually go and put in those art assets and close this off, put a staircase here, that sort of thing. But okay, let's make another one. So I'm going to delete all of the floor that I've got in there, and I'm going to delete the walls because we want to do a different layout. There we go. So I'll probably make one where this side's closed off, and this is open, and this is open, and this is open. And I'll continue my story. Tell us a story. So I'll talk about what's actually going to be coming in the next one, the next adventure. Adventure sort of episode 3. What's happening in the next one is that the characters are going to go off and help the Rat King. And what he needs is to get... make certain I'm in the right folder. Okay, there we are. Okay, so he wants to get his hands on something called the Elixir of Understanding. And the Elixir of Understanding... Oop, what's happening? Why is it not doing... Oh, that's because it's locked. There we go. Dope. So yeah, the Elixir of Understanding, and I sort of got distracted by this story a moment ago. So the wizards at the original wizards, because this isn't a ruined community that the rats live in, they used to make silk, and they used enchanted devices to enchant the groves where they grow mulberry trees to feed to the silkworms. And the mulberry trees have been enchanted so that they change the silkworms. The silkworms will get bigger and they'll produce more silk, and the silk that they make is highly enchantable. So the silk weavers at the community pardon me. Oh, I'm talking myself hoarse. Where's my drink? There we go. So the silk weavers, they make clothing out of the silk, which is very fine and very ornate, but it is highly enchantable. So they can enchant the silk with various things. So for example, imagine silk gloves of fire resistance, where you could, you could hold burning metal. If you were a weaponsmith, you don't have to worry about holding, that burning piece of metal that you're trying to turn into a sword, because you've got these magic silk gloves of fire resistance, which, holding a burning piece of metal, no problem. And the silk, their silk gloves, they're beautiful on the skin. So yeah, the silk weavers are really good at that sort of stuff, and they've enchanted these these mulberry trees to produce this really good silk, because they're modifying the silkworms. But here's the problem. That was hundreds of years ago. In the meantime, there's been a big war, and that community got wiped out, destroyed, flattened. But a lot of the machines, like for example the obelisks which surround the groves, which are the things that do the enchanting of the trees, they're still there. They're still enchanting the trees. The trees still have fruit, and that fruit is still making things grow big. And introduced into this are the rats. So the rats are eating the fruit, the fallen fruit. They're also eating the silkworm grubs, and they're growing big. But getting back to the original part, this community, they used a lot of animal familiars, and to make the familiars very, very useful, they commissioned another wizard who was working on another project, and they commissioned him to make an elixir that they could then give to their animal familiars, which would then grant their animal familiars knowledge. And that knowledge was basically communication knowledge. So they could effectively talk to their familiars, and their familiars could effectively talk back to them. This made them very, very useful. But here's the thing again. There was a war. They all got wiped out. These machines are still there. The font that makes the elixir is still there. It's still squirting out the elixir. The rats discovered it, and one rat drank it, and then so he suddenly became intelligent. He could now speak. But the enchantments on the mulberry bushes, he was eating the fruit, so he's been getting bigger. So slowly, over successive generations, these creatures, these rats, are being anthropomorphized, and they're gaining intelligence, and they're effectively producing another sentient species. And that's what's happening to the rats. So that's why they're getting bigger. They're walking, talking, and they look like the atypical monster rat. They are giant rats. You wouldn't want to meet one in a dark alley. And they have all the ratty traits. They think we taste delicious. Who knows? A couple of pygmy tribes from some islands. Long pig. Apparently, we were delicious. So yeah, monster rats. Here we come. So that's sort of the background story of how these rats became what they are. Their problem is that each successive generation away from a rat that had the elixir is losing the effects of the elixir. The elixir is not so the information is actually there in the brain of the little ratties, but they are losing the ability to comprehend that information. Oh, Photoshop's opening up again. I wonder if I need to redo something on my tablet so it stops double-clicking. Go away. Stop. Thank you. Okay, so where was I? So yeah, that's sort of how the rats are coming into being. So they want to get a hold. Each generation away from a rat that's had the elixir is, losing the ability to comprehend the information that is basically installed in their little ratty brains, which results in rats that have a lot of psychological problems. because they have this information, but they can't comprehend it, which makes them very irritable. Like, you know, someone who hasn't had their coffee in the morning, that bad. Okay, so we got an entrance there, and entrance there. So we're going to have a little rooms and maze type thing in here. So yeah, the poor old ratties need some help, and that's where the adventurers come in, and that's where the font of understanding comes in, because the thing that was making the rats, giving the rats that knowledge, is the elixir, which comes from the font of understanding. And the rats know this, but they can't get into the font of understanding. And I need to move that piece back, because the font of understanding is guarded by 2 obelisks that have big red crystal orbs at the top of them, and these orbs will fire, flame, and burning, basically try and set fire to anyone who approaches the shrine. Now, this is a bit of a giveaway, because I don't really mind giving this story away. So if you're actually if you want to play it and you don't want the spoiler, don't stop listening now. But in front of the shrine, there's a large stone area that's been cleared out, and it clearly demarcation of the area that the burning beam from the obelisks will reach. So it's quite easy to avoid being burned. You just don't go, within this area. But unfortunately, to get through the gates of the shrine, you need to walk between the obelisks and through the open gate, which means unless you stop the beams, you're going to get turned to toast. And that's the problem that the rats have, is they don't know how to shut the beam off. They have no idea how to do that. That's, the knowledge that was installed into their little ratty brains was all about, effectively, communication. How, language skills, effectively. So the poor little ratties, they need to get into this shrine, but the shrine is guarded by these 2 obelisks that burn you to toast. But in front of the obelisks, in front of the gateway, outside the zone where the burning beams will set you on fire, there is a little platform, and this is what I'm going to be doing in one of my live streams next. Is I'm actually going to draw all this stuff. I'm going to pencil it all out. What I'm going to build, because I'm going to draw the plans and then build it in Blender. And if I'm good, I'll live stream the whole lot. And hopefully won't make an idiot of myself in the process. But, hey, that's entertainment. And apparently I'm now in entertainment. I'm an entertainer. So yeah, in front of the doorway, outside the area which will turn you to a cinder, there is this. It's sort of like imagine a pedestal. No, I want that there. And then it has like a little. How do I explain this? It has like a rectangular block on the top, which has a recess, and then it has brass fittings, which appear to take a round circular marble, which looks to be about maybe 1.5 to 2 inches in size. You put a marble there, and obviously, nobody has the marbles, but the whole thing looks like it's made to take some sort of little marble. And this bit of marble, and I've accidentally double-clicked, this marble is actually a key to disarm the obelisks. So if you put them, if you put this little round orb into the slot, it disarms the obelisks, which allows you inside. But the whole part of the adventure is that you've got to find out this is how you can disarm the obelisks. B, you've got to find these little orbs, and obviously, as designer of this quest, there's 2 places you can find the orbs. The first place is inside the shrine, but you know it's the egg and the chicken here. You need the orb to disarm the obelisks, so you can get inside. But inside is an orb which will disarm the obelisks, but you can't get inside because the obelisks aren't disarmed. There will be other ways to get inside the shrine, but you know the easiest way is just to walk straight in the front door, which is easy to do if you've got something that disarms the obelisks, and it doesn't turn them off. It sort of stops them. It sort of puts them on hold. They'll start back up in, like, basically, think of it like this. It gives you 1 minute to walk through the door before the obelisks turn back on when you put the little orb in the slot. And the cool thing I'm going to design about the pedestal is that when you put the orb in the slot, it's got a little cavity, so the orb falls down the cavity and then goes into the shrine. Imagine like how I did plan to do it is, do you remember those old marble racetracks where it would be like a little racetrack built from wires, and you put the marble at the top of the racetrack, and then it goes down and around and through loops and stuff, following this, gravity pulling the marble down through the racetrack. So basically planning to have something like that. So you take the marble, you plonk it on the top of the pedestal, it falls down into the pedestal, goes along the racetrack, and it gets pooted out in a room inside the shrine. So you could. My plan is that hopefully the adventurers will work this out. Is that because the rats are going to need to get into the shrine, over and over and over again, so they can get access to the elixir. They'll work out that, hey, if you just grab this marble, and every time you go into the shrine, you just go into the back room and pick the marble back up, and then walk out with it, you'd be fine. That's how you access the shrine. But obviously, you've got to find all these bits, because they're all hidden. They're all hidden inside the shrine. And inside the shrine as well is a second layer, a second level. So there's the ground floor where there's the font where you can get the elixir, but it's not like that's why you're there, to get the elixir. But through exploring the place, you discover that it's really, that's why the place was there. But discovering through the second level and the back rooms, it's sort of like it's not the most important thing there. And I'm trying to say this without giving too much away, because I do want to sort of do a, reveal. Hey, this is really cool. Go explore the font of understanding, without actually sort of giving the entire game away before I release it. That's why I'm being a bit cryptic on what I say. So yeah, there'll be back rooms, there'll be rooms sort of, and they'll all be hidden. These will all be hidden. They'll be like the players will have to search the font in order to find how to access the back rooms. When they can access the back rooms, they can access a stairway which goes up to a laboratory which is on the top level. And the top level are the windows that you'll be able to see from outside the shrine. So what I'm thinking players will do, hopefully, if they're bright, if they don't find one of these orbs to unlock the entrance, or sorry, not to unlock, but to disarm the obelisks at the entrance, they will find so if they don't find one of the orbs, which I will have, there will be orbs outside. You just have to find them. But if they don't find one of these orbs, and Photoshop, I do use Photoshop a lot, but I just pardon me. Okay, go away, Photoshop. Or actually, hang on. Oh, and what's going? This is the only problem that I have with using a Wacom tablet. Is every now and then the driver crashes. Is it back? No, the driver's not there. Hang on. Let me just find. Where is it? www. Okay, here we are. Windows. Wacom Professional Service. Restart. For some, I've got a Wacom tablet, but it's like 15 years old because it's a big one. It's a great big chunky tablet. It's like a meter across. It's really cool. But the drivers for it crash every now and then. They don't crash a lot, but they do crash enough that it can be a pain in the bum. Okay, so now that that's fixed, let's go and put a room here. Anyway, back to my story. After Photoshop interrupted and my Wacom driver crashed. So where was I? Yeah, so you got to find the marble. You got to find the orb, basically a marble. I'll just call it a marble. You've got to find the marble, which will disarm the obelisks, which will let you in the front door. If you don't find one of these marbles, you've got to find another way to get in the front door, and that way will be through the windows of one of the top floors of this research laboratory, which, if you find the orb, if you find the marble outside the do I want that there? Yeah, I want that there. So if you find the marble outside the shrine, and you get in through the front door, the back rooms are hidden. So it just looks like on the ground floor, it just looks like the only thing that's there is the font, the shrine to the font, because the entrances to the back rooms are hidden by illusionary walls. So if you come in through the front door, you then have a real task to find the back rooms to get to the rooms upstairs. But if you climb the wall and come in through the windows, which you can see from outside, you will obviously enter into a level where there's research laboratories. And the research laboratories sort of give away the plot. Well, they give away a snippet of the plot. Because what you'll find up there which I hopefully, if I design it right, will give you an idea that this is, the kind of the science that these wizards were doing was not very wholesome. You'll find a lot of stone beds, like what's the word I'm looking for? Platforms where, like, what do you call? I have to look up this word. Where in a mortuary where they lay out the body, like platform where you lay out the body to inspect it when someone has died or whatever like that. So effectively, there's heaps of these stone platforms where you will find the remains of skeletons, because the bodies obviously have rotted away and just the skeletons are left. Because the wizard who was doing the research here, when the wars happened, he basically just went, stuff it, I'm not staying here. He left, and he just left the place as is. So there's the skeleton remains on these platforms, on these gurneys. But there's also a device that's been left running, and it looks like a bowl with a lot of crystals around the edges. And the whole idea is that you put something into the bowl, and then it shows you a blow up, like a magnified view, like an illusion will appear above the bowl, showing a magnified view of what you've put in the bowl. And the grisly part is that you will discover in the bowl a severed head. But it's not a head anymore, it's just a skull. All the flesh has rotted away. Because obviously this is the laboratory that the wizard used to try and figure out how to get the information from an educated person's brain. So yeah, the science that these wizards have been doing is not exactly wholesome. They weren't exactly nice people. And this wizard's laboratory, if I get rid of that piece and that piece, this wizard's laboratory will hint to that plot hook, that this guy, this wizard or witch or whoever was doing these experiments here, that resulted in the creation of the elixir. He did it by not very nice means. And Photoshop's loading up again. Ugh. Okay. Yeah, he was not he was not following any OH&S. Let's put it that way. He really didn't care about OH&S or being nice to others. He was basically, you've been taught how to understand English. I'm now going to chop your head off, put your head in this bowl, which is basically a scanner, and it's going to tell me where your brain has stored that information, and I'm going to see if I can distill that information out of your brain. Ew. But that's effectively how the font of understanding came into being. So that's the kind of experimentation that these guys have been conducting. And that's how, and you discover this by, discovering the back rooms, because if you come in through the front door of the shrine, you'll have to discover the illusionary walls that are hiding the back rooms. And by accessing the back rooms, you can access the stairway, which goes up to the laboratory level, which you'll then discover all this stuff. But if you come in through the windows, you come in through the laboratory itself. So yeah, and that sort of gives you, that sort of fills in. It's sort of like answering the question of how is the elixir made? Why was the elixir made? But you know, to the rats they don't care. They don't care. Their main thing is they need the elixir so that their progeny don't end up being drooling idiots, and so that they can continue being smart. But that's what's coming with the font of understanding, is that the players will hopefully come to grips with the idea that, you know, these guys were into some pretty messed up stuff. You know, they were researching. I probably want to, not use that piece. You know, what they were researching was not completely wholesome. Which also might mean that those wizards, thank goodness they're dead. Thank goodness they effectively had a war centuries ago that wiped them all out. Because, you know, if they were around now, they'd be doing experiments on us. Spoiler here. No. Well, actually, some are still around. And they are doing experiments on everyone. But the reason that some creatures exist on the world of the 12, world of the cube, is because they were test subjects. They were manufactured beings that the wizards made. And in fact, the reason why they had a war is with those creatures that they constructed. Spoiler. Hopefully I didn't give away too much just then. Oh, it's too hard having secrets. You just want to tell people. But hey, it's on I'm giving away the secrets on a live stream that, if according to my analytics, most people tune out after the first 2 minutes. Not a leap of people hang around for the whole live stream. In fact, people, according to my analytics, people hang around for the first 2 minutes, and then they seem to wander off, but then they come back. So I'm not completely boring. They seem to come back, give it, because each of these live streams should be lasting about 2 hours, because I start at 10 and I finish at lunch, so that's about 12. So that's about a 2-hour live stream for each of these map builds. So I'm getting one map created every every hour, mainly because I sort of stop and think and chat and waste time. Pardon me. And blather on like I am doing at the moment. But yeah, apparently people come back. They come back and they watch a little bit more, and then they wander off, and they come back and watch a little bit more. So that's apparently what happens. Or they don't watch the live stream. They come and watch it later on, which is probably streaming Monday morning is probably not the best time to get live interaction with people. So maybe I might need to change my streaming time to some weird time, and I do have a lot of people that tune in from the US. A lot of people from the US and a lot of people from Europe tune in and watch. So to those people who tune in and watch from the UK and Europe and all that, and the US, hello. I do notice you come by later on, even though you may not be watching during the actual live stream. But yeah, hello. Please, like, subscribe. It shows that you know, the show I am getting a little bit of traction. People are enjoying what I make. Okay, so I'm gonna. How am I gonna do a room here? That's sort of what I'm thinking. Putting in a room here, or maybe 2 rooms, or a corridor and a room. Maybe I might do that. I'll put in a corner here. But I need to put some corners here. But yeah, so what's the question then comes after the font of understanding? Where do we go next in the world of the cube? And I already have ideas for that, based on an adventure I was building before I started all this. The adventure is called The Needle, and it's an interesting place. How to explain it? The Needle is a great big spire of stone, and it is hanging in space. It looks like a needle of stone. It's about 10 miles in length, so 10 miles in height, and it comes down to a point which is then sort of looks like it's suspended in effectively a stone circle. So imagine like Stonehenge, but built up a bit bigger. So it looks like the henge is kind of creating some sort of force that is keeping the needle suspended in the air. And this is a needle that looks like it is 10 miles high. And inside the needle is another wizard's dungeon. And it's mostly intact, this wizard's dungeon, or this wizard's home. And the reason for that is very interesting. This wizard, or the wizards, multiple, who were living in this needle, they were creating a slave race, a race of slaves. And like most of the dungeons, the devices that create the slaves are still on and still banging out slaves. So inside this needle, there are devices down inside it that are actually creating these little creatures. They're only about 2 maybe 3 foot high, and and they look like imps. They look like little imps. And the devices are sort of, still making them. But because they haven't been turned off, it's making like a little horde of these little imp-like creatures. Now, a group of guards from the nearby Principality of East, because the needle is actually it is situated directly across the labyrinth plane from the Principality of East. So you can actually, on a clear day, you could actually see the needle. Oops, that's not what I wanted to do. I want to delete that thing and delete that. So I'm putting a corner in there. Okay. So you can actually see the needle from the Principality of East, and you can see the Principality of East because it's only about 20 miles away from the Principality of East. You can see the needle, vice versa, and the rulers of East know that the needle has got machines inside it that are creating these little imp creatures. But every time they've sent over warriors to try and adventurers to go down inside the needle to turn off the machines, and also they don't know what machines to turn off. no one's survived long enough to get down deep enough inside the needle to turn the machines off. Because the machines are making so many of these little gremlin-y type guys that whoever goes down there just gets overwhelmed by all of these little gremlin-y guys. So they have a group of guards stationed at the entrance to the needle, which is actually at the top of the needle. When you go over to the needle, you pass by the Stonehenge down the bottom of it. You go to the wall, the maze wall of the cube, and inside there you'll find a little opening, which will go in, and there's a elevator. You take the elevator to the top of the stone wall, where there is a platform, which you then go across a bridge to the top of the needle, where there is an entrance to the needle. So the guards have a permanent attachment who stay there to basically prevent the little imp guys from escaping the needle. So they've sort of worked out that they need so many guards to just, because the little imps come out in groups and they'll try and break out. So they've worked out they need so many guards and they need to kill so many imps on such and such a daily basis. So the needle has become sort of like, I put a whole heap of these. These should all be in that folder. I just noticed that, so they should all be in there. There we go. Okay, so, yeah, the needle just keeps, the devices down in the needle just keep banging out, effectively this little imp-like slave creature. And they don't want all of them getting out. So they've basically built like a barricade at the entrance to the needle to stop the little imps getting out. But they haven't been able to get anyone to go down deep enough in the needle to find the machines and turn them off so that the needle doesn't keep banging out these little impy guys. So what's going to happen is when the characters will finish up at the Font of Understanding, and the rats will lead them to the edge of their forest and give them directions to get to the Principality of East, where the characters can meet up with the trade caravan that they met on the Trader's Way in episode 2, which is the one that I've just finished. Pardon me. So it'll allow them to, link back up with those guys and, exchange stories and go, hey man, we met these ratty guys and we did this thing for them. But also it will allow the characters to equip themselves, because they'll get to the first real city in the world of the cube after they've been teleported to the world of the cube. I want to take that off. Okay, so back around to the floor. There we go. So yeah, it'll be the characters will actually have a chance to take stock of their situation and equip themselves at the Principality of East, and sort of get a bit of a grip for the kind of civilization that the world of the cube has, and also for the fact that everything's different. Like even the money you use is different. There's most of the world of the cube doesn't use gold coins, doesn't use silver coins. They use pennies and sovereigns. Sovereigns are basically a silver coin, and they're pretty much the substitute for a gold coin. Pennies are pretty much the substitute for a copper coin. And they're all each of the 4 major gnome cities mint their own coins, and each other town has their own currency as well. So, for example, the Bolt Hole has its own dwarven currency, and I think I'm about to have barking doggies. Come on. Oop, I do. Hang on. Let me just try and work out what the hell they're barking at. Back in a second. Okay. Hopefully that's sorted. Just had someone arrive home. So now they're now going to take care of the dogs. Ooh. I don't have to worry about doggies anymore. Yes, we do doggy daycare here during the week for my sister's dog. She's a little poodle, but she's a small dog, but she has one hell of a set of lungs. So she can make one hell of a noise when she starts barking at things. Usually when I'm streaming, she is sound asleep on a blanket directly behind me. But someone's come home, so it was like, I need to bark. I need to pretend that I'm a guard dog. So, yeah, she's gone outside. But anyway, where were I? Oh, okay, so, yeah, I was at the Principality of East. So the characters will finally get to a big city where they can, get a feel of the lay of the land, and they'll discover that because this is the first gnome city they'll get to, so they're going to kind of get a different sense from the Principality of East than they would from the other big gnome cities, because the Principality of East is actually quite cosmopolitan compared to the other gnome cities. The other gnome cities are, you get the stark feeling that there is a 2-tier society, whereas at the Principality of East, you don't get that so much, because they are a little bit more accepting of outsiders. But again, they're accepting to a point. And pretty much all known gnome cities, imperial gnome cities, are 2-tiered. There's the inner gnome city, which is exclusively made up of gnomes. Then there is the outer city, which is pretty much everybody else. And there you'll find all the fantasy races. You'll find elves, humans, dwarves, everything. You'll find ogres. You'll find, orcs as bouncers at nightclubs. The whole works. All the fantasy races are there. It's just this 2-tiered society that the inner gnome city, which is actually built inside the mountain wall. So the gnome city actually goes up the mountain wall. So there's like balconies and stuff up the mountain wall. The difference with the Principality of East is that several years ago they had a calamity which has been called the Great Tumble, or just the Tumble, where the gnomes had built so many apartments and rooms and stuff on the mountain wall, and the city's built on a corner. So the corner juts into the outer city, which is where all the the other races live. But the gnomes had built so many balconies and all sorts of stuff that it actually created unstable area of this corner of the mountain wall, and the corner broke off and it tumbled into the city below. And during the catastrophe, when all of this stuff broke off, the royal family, who had apartments pretty high up on a pinnacle that stuck out, they all died. The royal family died in the tumble. Lots of people who the stonework fell on, because it pretty much decimated the center of the city. We're talking hundreds of tons of stone fell on the city, and it decimated the place. It'd be like it'd be like a big major city having a landslide in the middle of it during peak hour. But and the reason why the city is now so multicultural is everybody of the city pitched in to help anyone who was under the rubble. And the gnomes of the Principality of East saw this, which it contested their ideas that other races are exploitive of the small folk who are gnomes, because they think because they're small, because they're smaller than most of the other races, they exploited, which is part of their myth that Mechanos created the world of the cube for the gnomes, because on every other world they get exploited. So Mechanos created this world for them, so a world where they will not get exploited. But because during the tumble they saw so many others helping to save gnomes, they were sort of like, oh well, these people can't be all bad. They're pretty good. They helped dig my Auntie Sue out of the rubble. Stuff like that. Let's put a big pit trap here and a little one. This one over here. So yeah, that's how the Principality of East. It's how it became a principality, and it's how it became cosmopolitan, because the gnomes of the Principality of East saw that these people that helped them weren't bad people. They were pretty good, because they helped out when the chips were down. Let's do that. Come back up the top here. So yeah, that's the characters will get to the Principality of East. They'll get to equip themselves for the first time, really, because when they arrive on the world of the cube, they won't have a lot of equipment. They pretty much only have the gear that they were sleeping with at the time. But yeah, they'll get to the Principality. They'll get to equip, and then they'll get to sort of take stock and work out where do we go from here. And that's where I'll be throwing plot hooks galore at everyone. So the first plot hook, or actually the closest plot hook to get to, will be the needle. And I'm thinking at the moment the needle's going to have... I'll probably do something where the guards for the needle, they do two things. They allow adventurers to come and try their luck to get down inside the needle and see if they can find any discoveries. They allow adventurers, and this is a bit icky, pardon me, they allow adventurers to effectively grind for EXP in the needle. So you effectively you can go to the needle, pay a fee, and just go down and kill as many of these little imp creatures as you can. So imagine it like computer games where, you know, when you start the computer game, you're going down into the sewers and you're going to grind killing rats, which is usually the monster down the sewers in most computer games. Except in this case, it'll be like little imps. So you're going to grind killing imps for XP to gain a few levels. So that's effectively what people go to the needle for. Is, you know, to sort of see how many levels can you go down, how many imps can you kill. But here's the thing about the needle as well. It will be another one of these things that it's, how to explain it? The creatures that are in it, they're constructed, they're manufactured creatures, and they're not like the guards just think they're little imp creatures that we need to keep culling them, or else they'll just flood out of the needle and go on a rampage around the countryside. When the actuality is that you know, they're basically trying to defend their home, which is the needle, from attack, which are the adventurers and the guards. So it's sort of like once again, it's a juxtaposition of what you think is going on is not exactly what's going on. But also, there will be little hints that will tie into the font of understanding, because there will be the device which automatically creates the elixir. There will be one of those in the needle, which is instilling knowledge into these little imp creatures as they're made. So there's that crossover that obviously the wizard who made the font of understanding was also working with this wizard who was making these little imp creatures. So hopefully, you know, people will start to go, oh, there's a lot of crossover here. This guy was working with this guy. So yeah. But yeah, so the needle is it will probably be the closest plot hook, because it is quite literally across the way from the city. You know, you go across there. The next plot hook will be two other adventures which I've already made, which I need to update to the current stuff. The first one is the Tomb of the Screaming Skull, which is a necromancer's disembodied skull which screams because he's insane. And the other one is the Tomb of Franz Hauser, who is a journeyman knight who he will bestow his blessing upon adventurers on the Great Quest. So that'll be the next things too. So there's three adventures getting keyed up for the next bit. But anyway, this adventure map is completed, and this is the end of my live stream. I hope you have had a good day listening to me ramble on. Please like, subscribe. If you want to know more, join me on join the Studio Wildfire community on Patreon. I've also got a Discord channel which you can jump on and chat to me in. I usually jump in there and play games at night. But yeah, thank you for watching. I hope you have a good day. I hope you have a good week. I hope it's going to be warm, because I'm freezing. I need to go and find a blanket. Thank you for watching. Oops, where's my mouse? Thank you.